The Fujicast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Congratulations, Kev. Ex-photographer, another year, signed in, contract, done.
Boom.
Yeah. What does this mean? You get to the, keys to the house of photography or something? Or?
Actually, it means everything is the same as it has been for the last 7 years. No,
it's not changed at all.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing,
yeah.
Yeah.
I love many messages of congratulations? Did the Pope personally send you a missive?
Not the Pope, bless him. Lots on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff was a lot of good positivity and everything. I think that there's been a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? A change in the UK ex-photographers'
outlook.
Yeah. Outlook, that's the right word.
In what way?
Well, I think there's some gone, some come in.
It's nice that is now there as well.
I don't know who's been announced yet, so I don't know. I think there's a couple gone off the website, but I don't know technically who's going to go on there, if any at all.
I'll edit that bit out, shall I? But I think that's very good. Well done. I'm really pleased for you.
Thank you.
Must be pleased as well.
I am indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Another year, all signed up.
The Fujicast.
Well, good afternoon, I was going to say. That's a stupid thing to say because you're listening to the podcast. It could be morning where you are. It could be night time. It's just because we happen to be sat here in the afternoon at 14:14.
14:14.
Yes. You and your questions today, the mailbag is electronically brimming. So thank you for your questions, your thoughts and your feedback that you've been sending in to this one important email address, click@fujicast.co.uk. If you've emailed before, fantastic. You are officially what we know as a friend of the show. If you've never emailed before, get on that keyboard, announce yourself as a first-time writer. One thing we noticed, by the way, Kev, is more and more camera users of other flavours and brands are joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is good.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you. As always on the show, there'll be the Fujifilm questions. Some tech, some not so tech, but we'll also tackle those thoughts and sharings cross-genre, from weddings to street to landscape to just a love of the art. At the end of the show, we'll have another one of your photo disasters, so remember to keep sending those to us as well. We'll take. I should have had a program meeting with you on this one, but last week you said to me you like the coat of ego, and I lost the bed. I deleted the bed accidentally. But I've brought back in the the bath of self-indulgence.
Okay.
So it's gone back.
So we're getting out of the bed and into the bath.
Into the bath, yeah. So thank you for your Apple reviews, your words of kindness, and your sharing and all that sort of stuff. We'll have one from Kev's bookshelf. And before we go on, remember to join the private Fujicast group. It's a very safe place where you don't get ridiculed for asking even the most simple questions. There's a community of friends and experts waiting there. Not too many rules, but there is one rule. No mic pick drops. Give a little context. Tell us, as Kevin does on his side, I guess, really, why you love your picture and why you made it. And today, by the way, interview-wise, we've got, is it Luis or Louis Garvan?
Louis.
It is Louis.
It is indeed.
So we've been
Louis.
calling him Louis. Oh, I have.
I did call him Louis originally when I first met him, and then one day when we got to know each other a bit better, he said, it's Louis.
Did he?
Yes.
So it's a bit like
Jose
and Jose then.
Yeah, I think because it's Mexico, isn't it? So it's not Spanish, it's Mexican Spanish.
So it's Louis
rather than Louis.
So
what a nice guy.
It's hero worshipping time today, really, because both you. I mean, you were originally his number one fan. And you kind of introduced him to me, and I think he's fantastic.
We love you, Louis. We do. We love you, Louis.
There we go. You got your own fan club. Right, you want to launch off with questions?
I will. I have one from Adam, and he says, Dear Neil and Kevin, I have been a fan of podcasts for years, and yours is by far the best I've listened to. Very nice, thank you. It's informative and hilarious.
It wasn't supposed to be. It was never launched as a comedy podcast.
Well, I always knew it would be funny if I was doing it with you. Though I'm not a professional photographer, I do take a lot of images for work. I moved to Fujifilm back with the X100 original and have so far owned every version that's come out. Right. My question is, with the X-T4 coming out, I am considering moving to interchangeable lens bodies. I'm looking at getting 23 and 50/56. However, I'm worried that the 23 1.4 and 56 1.2 offer no weather sealing at all, whilst the cheaper offerings do. I don't get why Fuji have done this. Surely the more expensive lenses should be weather sealed. I don't photograph in monsoons, but how worried should I be about these things?
Do you know, I have thought about this weather sealing thing when because we're in a country which rains quite a lot.
mate.
But I've never been affected by it.
You know, the fact is the 23 1.4 and the 56 1.2 were first-generation lenses. They came out, I don't know, 8 years ago, 8 years ago. The bodies weren't weather-sealed. What's the point in making the lenses weather-sealed then? So that's why those lenses are not weather-sealed. The modern lenses are all weather-sealed, and that makes sense because technology has come further and etc. Yada, 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 yada. However, that being said, weather sealing is never anything that I take into consideration when making a purchasing choice, ever. We do live in Britain where it does rain, but it's not exactly biblical. But I've shot with my non-weather sealed bodies and lenses all over. The only thing that I think the weather sealing stuff is really, in my mind at least, is really beneficial for is if you live, if you're shooting on the beach or in the desert or very windy, it stops the kind of grime and grit and everything getting
on
in there.
Merthyr Tydfil, of course, on a
Merthyr
Friday
Tydfil,
night.
yeah, Merthyr Tydfil. Don't want to get too much Stella Artois over your 23mm lens.
They don't drink Stella in Merthyr, do they?
Maybe not. Yeah, I feel like we're picking on Merthyr and we shouldn't do that. It's terrible.
You started it.
I know. Well, it was after that thing that happened. Anyway, so yeah, I honestly, the f2 lenses are cheaper. They're weather sealed. They're lighter. They've got everything going for them apart from you don't get that extra stop of light. Yeah. So if you're not worried about that extra stop of light, go for the f2 lenses every time. Thanks, Adam.
Good luck. Kev, I want to read you an email that was sent in. It's quite a long one. Are you ready for this? It's one of the reasons we decided to do an episode on mental health. Gabrielle Matola mentioned her struggles, didn't she, in her interview? And Ian McDonald in Canada mentioned how photography has helped him during his darker moments with PTSD. And these are not isolated guests or mails. So if after you hear this, you want to share your stories and experiences, that's the reason really why we're going to attempt to do something properly on the subject. So I tell you what I'm going to do, Kev. I'm also going to pull up on your screen in front of you Keith Vorton's website.
That's nice, isn't it?
It's a really nice website, actually. Yeah.
I've seen that.
His documentary, you've not seen this, his documentary Eye is absolutely fantastic. This boxing project's great, by the way. Boxing project, I can just see that's the sort of thing you'd love to do.
I'm doing one.
Are you?
Malmesbury Boxing Club, yeah.
No way.
I'm going to get in there.
Is the boxing scene big in Malmesbury?
Yeah, actually, it's relatively big. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got a couple of European champions and stuff come out of there.
Well, I mean, some of his work here, Watching Windows, look at that, great work. Superb eye for street work, isn't he?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I think your mouse is working. So if you want to sort of check through his site while you're listening to this, then please do. So this is from Keith Vorton. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Neil. I've been a listener since the very beginning, and it's always cheered me up as I battle my way through the Manchester rush hour traffic. I remember you asking for people's stories, and I've been thinking about writing it for some time and sharing with you my journey into photography and how it probably saved my sanity, but more importantly, my life. So here goes. Just over 8 years ago, my life was in a complete mess. Alcohol was slowly killing me. Mentally and physically, I was in an utter mess. Friends and family had washed their hands of me, and I was on borrowed time at work. My poor wife was at her wit's end, and my son, who was 8 or 9 at the time, was ashamed of me. I was clinging on with my fingernails, trying to keep everything going, but time was running out. So December 2011, 1 week before Christmas, I decided to take my life as there was no other way out for me. Alcoholism had beaten me, and I couldn't face life anymore. The guilt, the shame, the mental torture was unbearable, and yes, it is the easy way out, but for me, there was no other choice. When you're in that dark pit on your own and you think there's no escape. Luckily for me and my family, I had a friend who called round and we talked it out and stepped back from the point of no return that time. The following day, I decided to get some help. When I finally sobered up and sorted my life out, I needed something that was going to give me a purpose in life. I'd always had some interest in taking pictures, as we'd always had point-and-shoot cameras for family holidays or events, and looking at some of those images now, I can see there was something there, especially with the way that I composed some of the shots. Shame I never tapped into it sooner, but there we are, we live and learn. Once the blinkers came off, I began to see the world with fresh eyes, and that really is when I started taking pictures. At first with my phone, and then my wife bought me my first proper camera, a Nikon D3100 with a kit lens, a gift for my second year of sobriety. At first I was just going around photographing everything and anyone, but the one thing I did enjoy was people watching, and I eventually landed on street photography. And that's when I purchased my first Fuji camera, the now classic X100T. I still use the T along with X Pro 1 with a 35mm 1.4, but the T is something special and took my photography to the next level. Street photography and photography in general is like a meditation for me, because when I'm out there, I'm not thinking about the bills or work or anything else. It's just me and the camera. I'm in that moment, and it's a good place to be, and even better, it's free. Everything I've done has been self-educated, learning from my own mistakes and trying to get better. It's not perfection I'm looking for, it's progress. I love that saying.
That's very good.
I think we can all get wrapped up in the chasing of likes and thinking more gear will make us better photographer, and I can easily fall into that trap, but I never lose sight of why I do this. I do it because I love it, and it helps to keep me mentally well. Yes, it's become an obsession, but a good one. Over the past 2 years, I've tried to turn this hobby into something else, but it's not easy. And if it comes, well, it comes. And if not, at least I gave it a go. Photography won't cure mental health and addiction, but from my experience, it's helped me to enjoy life again and helped me to escape that madness. I'm not looking for accolades, but if my story can help just one person and let them know there is a way out, then that's good enough for me. No matter how far we fall, there's always a way out. On the 27th of December 2019, so just gone, I celebrated 7 years of sobriety. It's not been easy, but the rewards far outweigh the negatives. My wife has her husband, my son has his dad, and my mum and dad have their son. And you can't put a price on that. From Keith. Of all the letters we've ever received, that one, when I received that, I was like punched. I thought, in a good way. I was like, well, I just want you to go to his son. So go to there we go. And I'm going to tab down if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But I was reading this letter, and I had that also on my screen. That's a picture of his boy. And you have to get to rock bottom when you can leave him in a world without his dad. And that's a beautiful story, pictures that he's written about his son as well there. Or rather, photo story about his son.
Yeah.
So there we go.
No, it's wonderful.
On that note then, we did mention that we would be doing 2 specials, one on personal projects and the other one we're going to do on mental health. So if, and I know it's going to be difficult for some people to share their stories, and you might not want to, of course. But if you'd like to write to us at click@fujicast.co.uk, then we'll be doing a special on mental health and photography. And I guess really the currency of likes and all that stuff, because that's responsible for an awful lot of
huge
negative thinking, isn't it?
Huge. Yeah. I cannot wait until Instagram eradicate the likes.
Do you think they will? Because they had a go at it, didn't they? In certain places.
Canada and Australia, it's gone.
It kind of went away though, didn't it?
I think they're trialing it. Canada and Australia, I think, have gone, and I think it's certainly a good thing. I don't want my kids growing up. I don't want your kids growing up in a world where they're validated by the amount of thumbs up they get. Yeah. It's just not right. I don't like that idea. I
highly dislike the thumbs down button on YouTube for that reason. Highly dislike it.
I only use it on your films.
I knew you were going to say that. Thank you, Keith, for your email. Very much appreciated. And if you want to see Keith's website, which I'm sure you will after hearing that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure actually if you reach out to Keith, he'll be pleased to talk to you.
Yeah.
And that link will be on the Fujicast website, and of course on some apps you'll get that in the show notes as well. So,
absolutely.
Thank you, Keith. I know that was serious. I know it was long, but I really appreciated that email into the show.
Yeah, I know it was beautiful in a very kind of it was cathartic listening to it in the fact that we knew that it was going to end up in a good place.
Yeah. No, thank God. Yeah.
And it's not just it's not just people like Keith that have those kind of success stories. And sadly for all the Keiths out there are people that don't. They still wander off that path and find it very difficult to get back on it. And it doesn't have to be from substances. It could be from personal circumstances, divorce, family issues, finance, money. There's a lot of problems out there that simply. I love the idea that he said about just picking the camera up and you don't have to worry about the bills or anything. You're just out there.
And the best thing is it's free.
And and you know what? Something it's nowhere near the same importance level. But recently, I've been doing a lot more cooking. I've been sending you my pictures.
I know you do. Every night. How late do you eat?
No, we ate late. We ate late. We late eat. We ate late on Sunday because
at that point.
we ate late on Sunday because we'd been to Wales to visit the folks.
Oh, of course you had. Yeah, and it was St David's Day, of course.
It was, and also our anniversary. Yeah. But so cooking, and you know what I've done for the first time in a long time? I say, play Steve Earle music or Townes Van Zandt or Guy Clark.
If you've got an Alexa at home right now, you've driven people mad.
Yeah. Oh well, in that case, everybody be quiet. Ready?
Yeah, go on.
Play Stuff That Works by Guy Clark. Now everybody just has to listen to that song. That's the song
they've tuned out of us now.
That is the best song in the world, and that is the song. I have the words tattooed on my arm, and it's the song that I proposed to Gemma while he was singing during that song.
But he does. Kev started sending me pictures of his dishes, his cardboard dishes, round about 8:30.
It was cauliflower. It was buffalo cauliflower.
9:30, 10:45. I get the regular update of what's going in Kev's gullet.
It's delicious.
I sent back a picture of my steak.
yeah, you did. But the point is, like, I find it very cathartic, and cooking and just listening to music rather than. And I've deleted Facebook off my phone. I've even deleted the BBC News app off my phone. It's all gone. Yeah. I'm just like, all of the stuff that's going on in the world. It's obviously there, and I read about it, and I see it, and I still do my Facebook stuff, but I don't need to be, when I'm cooking my vegetarian lasagna, then or vegan lasagna in fact it was.
The world's a better place.
The world is a better place. Yeah. And I've got my lovely little kitchen and my lovely little wife and my lovely little kids and there's one lovely little dog and one not so lovely little dog.
Oh, don't be horrible about that dog. He's lovely.
Okay, right. Second question.
Your question.
For me.
Yeah.
This is from Helen in Cambridge. She says, "Hi guys, thank you for continuing to entertain me every Monday morning with your excellent wit." And there it is again, wit, humour. Yeah. Inspiring interviews.
I'm sure they're listening to something else.
Exemplary knowledge. Yeah, perhaps they are.
Is there another There is another Fujicast, funny enough, about cars.
There is indeed. Yeah.
I don't think they've done anything for ages. Subarus, yeah. Scoobies.
Perhaps they've been listening to Sam and Steve instead.
Yeah.
Anyway, a couple of questions for you. Number one, the X100V says that if you buy the filter, it's weather resisting. What does this mean in the real world? Could I stand on a beach and spend 10 minutes taking a selfie, dancing in the rain without worry? Could I shoot all day in the rain without a brolly? This is almost poetic.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it out again. What does this mean in the real world? Could I
do it in song?
Could I stand on the beach and spend 10 minutes taking a selfie, dancing in the rain without worry? Could I shoot all day in the rain without a brolly? But Helen, you ruin it because the next two sentences don't make any kind of rhyming sentence. Okay. So, or is the weather sealing more regarding sand not getting into your nooks and crannies on a windy day at the beach?
Well, you wouldn't want sand in your nooks and crannies on a windy day at the beach, would
never.
Would you like sand in your nooks and crannies?
How about no?
No, absolutely not.
Right. So the answer is A. I don't have an X100V. I haven't bought one yet. I probably will at some point. But yeah, my understanding is you do need the little what they used to call the vanity ring, which is the little tethered the filter ring they put on the front. You do need that for full weather resistance, and I think that basically means that you can stand on the beach without worry. You can stand on the rain without a brolly, because I've done that with all my X100s in the past, and none of them have been weather sealed.
Have they not?
So no, my X100S I dropped to the bottom of the swimming pool and still works.
Did you?
Yeah. Blub, 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 blub. Second question is the ND filter they talk about an electronic thing? Will it become available whilst filming in a future update, do you think? Yes, it's an electronic ND filter. I believe it's gone from 3 to 5 stops as well, the X100V, which is pretty cool. So it's like a curtain that comes down on the inside. I see the question. Sorry. The pass. I don't know the answer, whether it's a physical curtain that comes down or whether it's electronic. Either way, it's now 5 stops and works very, very well. Will it become available whilst filming in a future update? Don't know. pass to that as well. I mean, more people will be filming now with the X100V because it has 4K, etc., etc. So potentially, I know one of the other questions I've been asked a lot is, will an built-in ND filter come to something like the XT4, XH1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9? And my answer is, I would say probably not, just because the interchangeable lenses, open up the sensor to the elements, and I think it's something that's built into the body of the X100. So, right. But who knows? Who knows what those little fairies are pedaling fast like in Tokyo right now?
Pedaling fast.
Number 3 is face recognition, focusing, tracking, available on the XT3 whilst videoing, as it is whilst photographing. Yes, is the answer to that. It works reasonably well. Better on the XT4, but reasonably well on the XT3. So thank you for your wisdom, Helen from Cambridge. Helen, send us more poems, please.
Yes, that Kev can sing. Sandy King, I have a question about licensing. I've had a lawyer use some images I made with them 2 years ago on a new campaign they've been running in a local paper and online. Now, that's fine, apart from the fact that when they were made, there was an argument over some of the pictures that they weren't entirely happy. Long story for another time. The upshot is, they didn't use them then and only paid my time, not for the images. And now they're using them 2 years later. I've spoken with them about this, and they say that they've paid, but now they have called on the pictures because of that. I feel I'm being bullied as they're using super techie legalese, but they know I had no contract with them as such, so I think they sound like they're taking liberties with this. Should I take this one just as experience, yep. Sandy? Yeah? Yeah,
I think notch that one up as bad experience. Don't use those lawyers again.
No.
And just, keep your powder dry next time.
What is it? Keep your powder dry and...
Keep your powder dry and keep your top knotted or something.
Yeah. Your grandma said that, didn't she, or something?
No. It was we had the letter last week.
I know, but I thought your grandma said that as well.
Gemma always says to me, keep your powder dry, but nothing about my tie. I don't wear ties. That's... You
wear a tie at a wedding, didn't you?
No.
Oh, no, you don't, actually. You're super George Clooney-like, aren't you?
I don't wear ties. Yeah. I'm too short for ties. If I wear a tie, I'll trip over them.
Dragging along the floor.
Okay, Jason Cox. Jason says, this is quite a long one, says, hi Neil and Kevin, I've been struggling with my current storage and backup solution. Now, this is very apt because I have recently totally redone everything.
Definitely a question for you.
At the moment, I'm using 2 4TB Thunderbolt external drives connected to my main editing computer, one being for the working on current files, with the second backup of said drive, plus a heap of previous work. I also have 2 further drives, which are copies of the backup drives, and these are kept off-site for extra security. I'm running out of space fast. Apart from the obvious solution of simply buying larger external drives, do you guys have any advice on any other forms of physical storage, or are you using cloud storage? Don't talk to me about cloud storage.
How does the Dropbox thing go?
Being a control freak, I feel reluctant to use off-site cloud storage. Thoughts? P.S. Before I answer the question, or before we answer the question, he says, any chance I can give a shout-out to my mate, Pulitzer, back in Melbourne.
Pulitzer?
P-Y-Z-E-R, in Melbourne, Australia, who has recently purchased his first Fujifilm camera, XT3, and won a short film festival using the new kit.
It's like proper radio. Hello, Pulitzer. Shout out for Pulitzer.
Pulitzer, the filmmaker from Melbourne, Australia. Yeah. Pulitzer. I like that. What a cool name. Yeah, cool name. Where did I end up with Kevin?
Well...
Pulitzer. I want to be called Pulitzer.
I've always thought Neil's a bit like Neil.
Yeah, but at least you've got silent letters in yours.
Yeah, but I know, but it's a bit like, I don't know, jelly.
There's nothing like jelly. Nothing. Anyway, right. So the answer. This is currently what I do, and then we'll see what you currently do.
Okay.
So what I normally do at the end of each week is scream at the computers and get very, very angry and frustrated and think, oh my God, what happens if the studio burns down? That's what used to happen. And then I had this epiphany that I've got all this stuff, all these and I like to have every picture from every wedding that I've delivered. So I have them all.
Not the originals, you mean
the edited JPEGs.
Yeah.
Right. So bearing in mind I've been shooting since 2008-ish.
So you got a few now.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
So I have those I did have them on a 10 terabyte drive, along with my personal photography library and commercial stuff and various things like that. Now what I've done, and my great grand plan, because I've used Dropbox, I have the 3 terabyte normal account, and I think that's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant.
Not enough for all that material, though.
Not enough.
No.
So I went down the route of trialing the Dropbox Business Plus system, which is basically £45, minimum £45 a month for 3 accounts, effectively, but it's unlimited storage, which was all good, and all sounded perfect. And so I trialed it. I didn't get to the point where I paid for it because it would take about 6 years to upload all of my stuff. And then what I did, in a fit of exhaustion, and I'm very happy that I did it, was I bought a NAS drive, a Western Digital Cloud, my cloud NAS thing.
Hang on a minute. I'm going to walk across the room again while you're...
Have you got... are you going to tell me you got one for sale for 10 quid? Yeah. Where are you going? He's just walked out the room.
Storeroom.
Yeah. Posh. He's got a storeroom. So while he's fiddling about in his cupboard, I will... oh, hang on. He's got... No.
Oh.
Probably not. Is that got 2 drives in it?
Hashtag be like...
No, that's 1 drive.
This is 1 drive.
Yeah, so mine's got 2 10 terabyte drives in it, which I've raided.
This is just a little 8 terabyte one.
Yeah, so I've raided mine. So I can only use 10 terabytes of it, but the other 10, it's raided, right? So everything goes on there. And then what I did was I realised, actually, all those JPEGs that I've got, I had them all in like Lightroom catalogues. Boom, 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 boom. So I did a quick disk scan of how much the previews, how much space the Lightroom previews are taking, and it was terabytes. It was huge, absolutely huge amounts. So deleted all the previews, deleted all the Lightroom catalogues, because of course I've just had my JPEGs. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. I can always create another Lightroom catalogue to open them if I need to navigate that way. So they all went. That saved a whole load of space. I now have that NAS thing working. I can access all of those images via my phone or from home, even when my computer's not on, because it's connected to my by Ethernet to my network system at home. In the studio, so I can get access to them all the time. And I also have I have that slowly, I mean it will be very slowly, going to Backblaze. So it's all kind of going up.
Sorry.
And he's lost the will to live. I do feel like I'm rambling now, but
no, not at all. So I just fell off the desk. I'm sorry.
So NAS in the studio for redundancy for sure, and then I'm just using Backblaze to just copy that lot up to the cloud.
Backblaze drove me mad.
It's actually a lot better than it used to be.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not worrying about it because none of that stuff, all of the stuff that's on those NASs is delivered work. So if the worst case scenario happened, also all of those weddings are also on Zenfolio. So they're all in the cloud anyway. But my biggest tip, honestly, get rid of all of the Lightroom bump. You don't need it. You know, if it's archived stuff.
I've got a lot of Lightroom bump actually.
It's huge, and that will save you so much data.
Yeah.
So much data. Anyway, so... Hello, Pulitzer. I got to say his name again. Pulitzer.
I work in a very similar way. It's not similar at all. I keep drives at home, a drive in the studio. They have to be mirrored, obviously, and then I use cloud storage. Right, just before we go to this week's interview, book of the week. Doesn't have a jingle, this one, but no. We both have this.
We need to get Helen to write a jingle. Something to do with brollies and
then you can
wellies and stuff. Yeah, and I'll sing it in my beautiful Welsh baritone voice. Okay, so this week we are going to talk about David Bailey's Democracy, which is a beautiful book with a very bizarre cover.
Well, it's a plate on the cover, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a plate. So the book is... I have... you have this as well as I have this. Yeah. And it's one of those books that, depending on which page you open, depends on your...
That chap looks just like me,
your
I'm sure.
initial reaction. Yes, so it's essentially regular people and some famous people in total democratic nudity.
Yeah, well, that's why it's called democracy.
Yeah,
everybody is the same. There's nobody hiding behind fashion or any labels or any literally labels. They are in the buff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's interesting because some of them are very well-known celebrities. I'm looking at Damien Hirst here. Yeah.
It's amazing how he managed.
Charlotte Bacon.
It's incredible how he managed to get some of the world's most familiar faces to pose nude in a book.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the ones that are models and the ones that aren't. Yeah. Quite easily.
But everybody looks comfortable. It's obviously had a
Yeah.
And a lot of people are having just extraordinary amounts of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for those of you who've not seen it, and I will link to it, of course, as usual, in the Fujicast links on the podcast episode. It's David Bailey's Democracy. It is one, if you're a little bit squeamish, or if you have your books on a very low shelf and you have young children, you might want to put the book on a higher shelf.
Yes.
But it's great because you can see the personality and the characters in each person. Some of them will make you more a little bit raise your very substantial eyebrows. In my case, a little bit more.
It's a lesson in posing. It's equally a lesson in lighting. Actually, this book.
It is.
The studio work is just phenomenal.
It's so simple. White background. It's just beautiful people, beautiful ordinary people in the buff, essentially.
And we'll link to it.
We will link to it.
Right, time for the interview. Luis Garvan. Now I know Luis Garvan, not Louis Garvan.
Luis Garvan.
Luis Garvan. What is it about Luis you like so much?
Mate, he is. He's a soul. He's a lovely soul. He's a brilliant artist. He is a kind person, sensitive person. He's cool. He's
very cool.
He's trendy.
Yeah. He's everything you are.
He's everything I want to be. Yeah, he's everything I want to be. His stuff is amazing. We have a print of his as you'll hear in the interview, of his in our house, signed print of his, and I've met him a few times, so I kind of know him, but hopefully you guys will get to. We spoke about him so many times, so hopefully you guys will now get to listen to him indeed. And do please check out his work because it is a phenomenal.
It's a slightly more concentrated listen because Luis has this wonderfully Latin voice, but you'll enjoy it. The day that Kevin met Luis.
Luis, how are you, mate? How are you doing?
Hey, how are you? I'm pretty good. Thank you for having me here.
So you're in Mexico City, right? Actually, in Mexico City itself.
Yes, I'm living in Mexico City. This is my base, and I love it.
Luis, I was trying to think about this. We first met in Argentina, I think. Was it FDF at Cordoba?
Yes, I think that's the first time we met in Argentina.
Buenos Aires we went to, yeah. And I remember... At that point, a lot of the South American photographers were new to me, and I remember seeing the pictures and thinking, oh my word, these are absolutely incredible, totally adorable, beautiful. And at the time, I think you were still photographing weddings as well. I'm not sure. Do you do weddings still these days, or is it all portraits?
Yeah, I do a few weddings per year. For example, last year I have only 4 weddings. It's just that I decided that I'm at one point of my career that I really want to do portraits. That's what makes me more happy in the world.
Most people will now know of you, or certainly know your work because of the portraits, and they're incredible. Simple as that. They're so. I was trying to explain to Gemma, my wife, that it's kind of like this fine art, beautiful portraiture. And I remember when we were in Argentina, you gave me a signed print of two hands just touching fingers. And we still have it, and it's on the wall in our bedroom.
Let me tell you, I used to do that. I used to travel with a print, only one print in every trip, and then I just give it to someone. So I'm glad you have it.
Yeah, we have it, and you'll be pleased to know that your picture is on our wall, and there are none of my pictures on our walls.
It's the same for me.
How did it all start, Luis? So what's your background? Have you always been a photographer, or is this a kind of second career? How did you get going with this?
I found photography for accident, I think, because my background is it's in art. Since I was a child, I spent all the time like painting or drawing or in some making sculpture. So my dream was becoming an artist. And then my mom gave me a camera to take pictures of the sculptures that I did. And then I just started using the camera to take photos of flowers. And then I just fell in love with that. It become like a natural process for me. Yeah, it's my curiosity since I was a child too.
Curiosity, that's such a nice word. And, I think when I look at your portraits, at least, there's very much of a curious nature to them. I think the way that you light it, the way that the subjects seem to be at ease, when these people turn up to your studio, how do you approach the shoot? Is it something you discuss with them? Do you just sit down and talk to them, or how do they get going, the shoots?
That's pretty interesting because sometimes, and most of the time, I don't know them. I don't talk to them until the photo shoot, maybe 5 or 10 minutes before to start. We met each other. I don't know, for me, it's also the surprise and the unexpected things, because I'm like that. I'm not a planner, I can't plan anything. For me, it's more about the first impressions also, because when you met someone, immediately you have first impressions, right? You have this person looks pretty confident. The first impressions for me are important to try to represent that on their portraits. You know what I mean? But I only took the positive first impressions because, of course, sometimes we have not a positive first impressions, right? But I work only with the positive ones, and I try to put that on my portraits, and then to also take the energy or the humor or of the person that I'm photographing.
It's really interesting because there are, on your website at least, and on Instagram and stuff, there are a few people that I also know that I've met. Yeah. For example, the one I'm looking at right now is the picture of Frank Boutonnet, the French photographer. Yeah. And I spent a week or so with him at a photography festival a few years ago. And so I got to know him reasonably well. And actually, when I look at that picture, it's just him. It's so him. It's amazing how his personality is in that picture. And, the eye contact, the way that he's kind of sat, and, he's a very, very athletic person, or certainly was at the time I knew him. He was running a lot and everything. And he just, that picture of him just sat there with his denim jacket, his denim shirt on. It's almost like I'm sat there opposite him, and, we're having a chat. It's quite incredible how the personality has come through in that picture.
Yeah, he's adorable. I mean, I love to work with him. I've been shoot him maybe 3 times now. The last time was a portrait with his daughter in France.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I suppose one of the questions that a lot of people will be asking, or will be wanting me to ask you, I think, is more about the business side of it, in terms of, in our country, in the UK, typical studio portrait photography is, it's difficult. It's people, in the world of the iPhone we have these days, people typically don't want to pay for pictures, certainly individual pictures. Is it paying the bills, I guess, is the question.
Yeah. In my last workshop, one of a pretty young student, he asked me, so how do you balance your passion versus the business? And for me, it was like, man, well, I have to pay my bills. That's a very important thing to talk about it, and to learn how can we make a better a better business person, or how can we change, or what we need to change in our business to make it better. Because I know when I decide to do only portraits, to quit weddings in some way, because I used to shoot every wedding. I mean, a wedding every weekend, So yeah. For me, it was a decision. But I know that it's very difficult also in Mexico just to live. I mean, to live only doing portraits. I know that. And for me, the answer is when you show more and more and more and more, I mean, you let people know what you do. So it was a very hard work at the beginning, because I push a lot, and I really want to make people sure that I'm a portrait photographer, and that's what I do. I mean, there's different kinds of market for portraiture, at least here in Mexico City, and I can guess that it's in so many places in the world like this. I mean, I moved to Mexico City also because of that, because I knew here in this city, it's a lot of people and there's a lot of productions of people who are looking for their professional portraits. So also it's a very well-connected city. I have a lot of clients who comes to Mexico City for vacations, or maybe sometimes they just come for a photo shoot. And also I'm doing editorial work for some magazines. It's pretty interesting because my clients, it's sometimes they just come and ask me for a nice picture for their professional profiles, and sometimes they ask me for a very personal reasons, like a very deep and personal reasons.
Pretty much all of your images are single subject, occasionally a couple of people, 2 people or so. Do you typically get people who turn up who want a very, regular family shoot of 2 parents and 2 children staring at the camera and smiling? Do they pass you by? Is that a good thing or a bad thing, maybe?
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that. I mean, I started shooting families, I think maybe last year or 2 years ago. And they are the more simple. I just love to see this beautiful picture of a family happy.
Where do you get your inspiration, if at all? Do you, is it kind of magazines? Is it stylists? When do you go, wow, that's what I really love and I want to try and bring that kind of inspiration to my work?
Well, there's a lot of things I can tell you, since movies to music to books, or I don't know. But right now, I think the most influential thing for me is paintings and architecture right now. I also start to do more color photographs because I used to shoot a lot of black and white. Most of my work was on black and white. But I think I started doing more color because of that, because I see all these beautiful paintings and all the colors that are vibrant and they just balance in a very beautiful way between each other. And on my mind, I was like, man, I want to do that. Yeah,
you're right about the color ones as well, especially the ones of the little girl with the red hair. Now, something that crops up occasionally in your portraits is nature. So pears, apples, fruit, and it's quite obviously done on purpose. But then you have the Botanica collection as well on your website, which is it's so simple pictures of flowers and botanical objects, but done just so creatively. Where's the connection? How is that your escape, if you like?
I think so. I think that's my personal project. I think that's my escape. That's a good word. I like it because the fruits and the flowers doesn't speak.
Yeah, and they will be very patient as well. They will sit there for as long as you need them to.
Yeah.
Do you sell these as prints? Do people buy them? Is that?
I'm going to. Yes, I'm completing the first part of this project, and I'm going to sell some of them. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, when you do, tell me, and I will be putting my order in. I know which one I want already. We have to talk a little bit about the gear. It's a photography podcast, and people will want to know, what you use to shoot and your kind of lights and everything. I think that it's a fairly straightforward system that you have. But tell us what cameras, what lights, what gets those beautiful portraits.
I'm changing to Sony. So I use the A7, the Alpha. I'm trying the A7 III, and I love the colors that I have with that camera.
And is it generally just a single light or a couple of lights, or?
Normally it's I can shoot with one light, but right now I prefer to do it with 2 lights. And in my studio I have a beautiful natural light. So when I'm shooting here in my studio, I shoot a lot a lot with natural light. But I use screens, black screens, reflectors, and I try to modify this beautiful light to make it better. But yeah, usually I can shoot with 2 flashes when I'm not in my studio. One for to make the shadows and everything, and the rest just for, I don't know, to make it softer, not that hard.
Yeah. I mean, I always find it interesting because I religiously follow your Facebook post as well, and whenever there's a new picture, and there always seems to be a different background or a different table, or I don't know, something going on, and then I stumbled across a YouTube video of you. And I think it was you creating the backdrop yourself with acrylic paints, and of course it was in Spanish, so I couldn't understand what you were saying. But I got the idea. So do you create these sets yourself, or I have this vision of this beautiful studio in Mexico City with these huge, beautiful windows and corners that are set up for different scenarios, and you working late into the night painting backdrops and chiseling chairs and things.
Yeah. That's exactly. Well, I used to dream with this studio like several years ago. If you ask me, maybe, I don't know, 7 years ago, this one was my dream studio. Like high ceilings and big doors, and so yeah. Just when I saw it, oh man, I found it. Finally, I found it, and that was only 1 year ago. 1 year ago. So that's new. So yeah, I use my background in art and painting. I do my own backdrops, and I paint all my walls in the studio. There's not a single wall that it's flat. Everything has a little textures maybe. But also I do maybe the half of my work in other places because I travel a lot. For example, with that portrait that you talk about with Frank, we just asked to the hotel for a room, and they gave us this conference room, I guess. You asked me, of course, I prefer to do these backdrops and these textures in the background.
Yeah, but it's you're a proper artist because you can make a picture in a conference room, and also you can paint the walls and you can sculpt, and all of that stuff is brilliant. And it's amazing to see how that manifests itself in your pictures. I think they're just beautiful. So you just mentioned, Luis, that you travel a lot, and you do workshops and various other things all around the world, I think, don't you?
Yeah.
Where are you? What have you got planned? What's happening for you in 2020?
Well, the next ones are, I have a couple in Mexico City, one Spanish and one in English, because also it's very easy for the US to come to Mexico City. And then I'm doing a couple of ones in Mexico, in the country. And then in May, I'm going to France and maybe Spain to do a couple of workshops there.
Well, Luis, honestly, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. I know a lot of people will be eager to listen to this, and for those listening, obviously, I will, as usual, put the links to Luis's Instagram and his website and the latest workshops. And you said you've got one in France coming up, so for those in Europe, that might be something for you to look at. And so Luis, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful to hear his voice, isn't it? Luis Garvan. Thank you very much. Is he going to come across here? He is, isn't he? Tell me he is.
Well, yeah, hopefully. I mean, he did have a workshop lined up last show, the year before, but unfortunately not enough people booked on it, which is ridiculous. So,
what do you like, people?
Maybe we will
Honestly.
get him here again.
Yeah. Back to your questions. Brian Clover, your interview with Jeff Carter on sports most recently was very interesting. Thank you. I listened attentively to Jeff's commentary regarding Fuji's development on the phenomenal 200mm super fast prime lens. Have you ever had a chance to play with that?
No, I've seen it, but never actually shot with it.
He purchased this at the photography show last March, did Brian?
Expensive.
Yeah. If Fuji could complete the range by releasing 400mm or maybe a 600mm prime lens, and I think the sports and safari photography fraternity would be more than confident to invest in the platform, because the whole thing was, I was saying, well, why don't we see more of them? Why is it that we still see the Canon, just Canon and Nikon lenses? To this end, if you were both sports photographers, here we go, Kev, put your sports photographer cap on, would you find good reason to purchase such lenses? I accept that they'd have even more premium prices, but still be better value and possibly quality than Canon's Sony equivalents. My money's ready and waiting for such glass gems. Thank you, Brian.
Well, I would say that's got to be on the radar for Fujifilm. I don't know for sure. There's nothing, as far as I'm aware, on the lens roadmap, the public lens roadmap. However, with the XT4 especially, and presumably any kind of future XH range that comes along, it's geared up for it now. It's the AF, the track-in, all of that stuff is brilliant. Yeah. And so it's just a case of getting those longer lenses. And I did do quite a bit of pitch-side rugby photography.
You did, actually?
Yeah, with my old Canon days. And
with your 1D thingy-bob.
My 1D thingy-bob. And I remember, what did I use? I think I had the something like a 40 to 140 or something, and I had a 400mm f4 lens, which I think was about $3,000 or something. I can't remember. A long time ago, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, absolutely. I think it's Olympic year as well, isn't it? So all things being equal, we might even see stuff. I don't know. Really don't know. But yes, absolutely. I totally agree. More long lenses. I think that Fujifilm cleverly and sensibly have been waiting until their system is fully capable, if you like, to be able to shoot 40,000 pictures of one football match, which is what these guys do.
And the XT4, of course, now shoots a lot more frames per second, doesn't it? So
15 frames in mechanical and God knows how many in electronic shutter mode, probably 50, 60, 70, I don't know. Huge buffer, all of that stuff. So I totally agree. And I don't shoot sports now, so it's not something I would invest in.
Would you like to go back to shooting sports?
I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
I did, but it was rugby, so I just quite like just sitting there and smelling the mud and the deep heat on the men's legs and everything. That used to bring back all kinds of lovely memories.
That's enough. Time out. Right, your question.
Okay, so right, we have
sounds a little bit troublesome.
We have one from Jamie Larkham.
Right.
Subject: Corona.
Warning.
I'll say.
Hi chaps, a strange curveball question for you, or at least a talking point. I'm a wedding photographer based in Yorkshire. Over the last couple of weeks, I've become a little bit obsessed with the news about coronavirus.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have.
What started out as, it'll never really make much of an impact here, is now beginning to sit uncomfortably at the back of my daytime consciousness.
Right.
Do either of you think that public hysteria could make this a problem for events like weddings? Do either of you worry that couples may start to get worried about holding such a day and may think about putting off such events to wait for this to blow over? With the latest news that there may not be a vaccine until mid-next year, I can't help thinking that, like Brexit, it's another excuse for people to put things off. We don't need another crisis of confidence. Sorry for the rather depressive question, but it's becoming a real nag for me.
Funny enough, I was at the accountant's earlier on today, and he was saying to me that he was having more and more conversations with clients about this. Now, funny enough, we're recording this a good few days before this episode goes out, and you don't know what's going to happen from day to day.
Exactly, 7 days.
Yeah,
we're exactly 7 days ahead of behind when you're listening to this. Assuming you're listening to it 7 days after we record.
If you're listening to it, oh God, don't start that. But I mean, there is a great deal of hysteria around it. But you've equally got to be very careful about using that word, because it's still a very real problem. I mean, I saw. Did you see the thing with? America closed their borders, didn't they?
Have they?
Yeah,
I haven't.
No, not entirely. They closed it to.
I haven't got the BBC News app anymore, so I don't know.
What did you say, Donald?
I made one decision that was a very important decision, and that was to close our country to a certain area of the world that was relatively heavily infected.
Oh, well, you mean like building another wall?
Don't be rude.
Oh, well, fair enough.
You're going to get in so much trouble for that.
We should not be laughing about it. But there's almost an hysteria in my voice about it, because I'm like, oh, please, not again. And when I get nervous, well, there we go. My gallows humour surfaces. Whilst I am aware, I'm all too aware that sadly people have lost their lives to this. But we're living, it seems, in this culture of fear. I mean, some people are afraid of Brexit. You know, many people are afraid of terrorism, viruses. And we talk about anxiety, Kevin, and problems and depression. And some could say that this preys on anxiety. But I'm aware, yeah, it's a real problem. I am. But equally, sensationalism scares people witless. And I can't help feeling that some of the reporting is rather leaning on that side. One of the things I noticed only a couple of days ago at our local Tesco, there was one chap buying all the sugar and the bread he could possibly get into one basket. It was all going in. I was thinking, what are you doing? Taking it to your bunker? I mean, that for me is a worry.
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it is a worry, and I'm worried, but am I worried because of the media, or is it a genuine worry? I think it probably is a genuine worry.
Well, let's split this into two then. Are you worried for yourself?
Not particularly for myself. I'm worried...
Because I know you can be a little bit of a worrywart.
I am very much a worrywart. I am worried for... just generally worried, other people, population, business as well. That's a big thing, because my next two weddings, one is in Amsterdam and the other one is in Berlin, or north of Berlin. So
and aviation is taking a real hit.
I've started this morning. I sent myself an email to look into, I've already got my flights booked for the Amsterdam wedding, but maybe look into driving to Amsterdam, because... part of me is...
So you'd sort of keep yourself to yourself in a ferry somewhere?
Well, I'll go on a train under the river.
The river? You mean the sea?
Yeah, well, it's only a thin sea, isn't it? It's practically a river.
That's true, okay.
Go under that thin sea and pop out in Belgium and then drive up.
All right.
So
it's quite a long journey, isn't it?
Yeah, but
you'd take that.
I quite like sitting in. I just quite like spending time by myself.
I know you do.
But no, it's a consideration. It's not something I've actioned yet, but it's a consideration. And it depends. I could get really close to the wedding, and then they say, right, there's no more flights out of the UK.
Can
for
you
a couple
really
of
see
days.
that happen?
I don't know, but it's a risk, isn't it?
Here we are, 7 days previous to what might be happening in 7 days' time.
Yeah, we don't know, and I think it's sensible to keep your eye on it from a business point of view, and obviously from a health point of view, and that's a different conversation. Your own fears and worries about it. I mean, you know what? I was not to kind of go off on a little tangent. I was reading about the swine flu pandemic that we had in 2009, and 540,000 people in England alone got swine flu.
I never knew it was that large.
Yeah, because it was a pandemic. It was the last pandemic.
Well, since you read about it, was it as virulent as, is that the right phrase, as a strain as this?
No. It's not. It would like the level of illness wasn't as high, but they thought it was going to be. Yeah. They did think it was going to be.
So they thought it would be as dangerous in terms of what it was.
They thought it was going to be more. They thought it was going to be more dangerous than it actually turned out to be. Put it that way. Yeah. But regardless, 540,000 people got it. Only a very small amount of people got very ill, luckily and thankfully. And hopefully that's what will happen here. Hopefully it will be another case of overprotecting, which is the right thing, and to kind of to squash it. Like, my hand on heart, feel and hope that it will get worse before it will get better.
Would you photograph a wedding with a mask on?
No, because the masks don't work.
Right.
The masks,
they don't, do they?
The masks are only they stop you spreading it a bit, but they don't stop you getting it. Yeah, no.
When I flew back from Norway, it was I was surprised there weren't more people wearing them, but there were pockets of families that were all masked up.
It was interesting. I think it was Dominic Whitten who put a question on the Facebook group.
He did, yes.
What are your contingency plans should you get ill for a wedding?
And you wrote, what are your contingency plans should you get ill from flu, didn't you?
Yeah, which is still my base feeling about this.
And then I believe there was a copied article, an American one. That was...
I didn't read it.
Well, it was of biblical proportions in terms of putting the frighteners on you.
Yeah, I didn't read that, and the biggest fear, I suppose, is the health system, and because more people will get ill, and more people will need health service, and and therein lies the problem. But I tell you what, this is what they've said, is that the reason why we're getting these bloody things is because we are encroaching on the wildlife. We are the bats and the cat or whatever that created this thing in the first place, and because we are eating away at their landscape, They are, they're connecting like they never did before. They've got not enough space to do what they need to do. So the bats are eating the feces of these animals that they've never had before. And this is causing problems. They don't have the right environment to live in. And, greed is greed, and rich get richer, poor get poorer, and the landscape gets smaller. The big business and the politicians get richer, and we get more worried. Yeah. And it's always been the same.
Well, there is that. There's not so much a conspiracy theory, but it's fact that it's never easier to control people than when they're frightened after death.
Oh, it's nuts.
And I would say that's what it's like at the moment.
Well, I mean, I just hope, we can't get political, but I just hope that people remember these things.
In Australia, by the way, talking about encroaching on the wildlife, there was a place we went to where when we visited a couple of years ago, where they'd built a brand new housing estate on land that was really important to the koala occupation. And so they'd taken away all their land, and they'd built a housing estate there. So they displaced the koalas, and they'd gone from the area. God knows what had happened to a lot of them. They sadly fall victim to cars and all sorts of stuff. They're not the quickest movers, are they, koala? And do you know what they called that particular estate? They called it something like Koala Avenue or something. I thought that was the ultimate slap in the face for the whole thing.
It drives me mad, and I do appreciate that the world has a lot more population and everybody needs to live somewhere. But the fact is, there are a lot of people who want to live in extreme wealth, and that's fine. You work hard, you want the rewards, of course you do. But there's an unbalance. It's an unjust unbalance, and unfortunately, I can tell you one thing's for sure, that the fella what owned that building estate that made those houses didn't give a damn about those koala bears.
Absolutely, I completely concur with that. Right, shall we should change the mood for a second, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we should. Shall I sing another song?
Maybe not. I'm gonna pass you. Let me pass you a couple of reviews and things. And do you remember we had the coat of ego, which I'm not sure everybody quite understood. We had our self-indulgent minute, didn't we? Which was kind of fun. So I decided to invent Club Indulgence, which is kind of a jazz club. Clubs are jazz clubs, aren't they? You're shaking your head like you don't believe me. Do you like this?
This is the third implementation of this.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get it right. I'm going to get it right.
You're giving me all people with really difficult names again.
Obviously. Okay. Right. So we do a couple each, shall we? You go first, one of your difficult names.
Okay. Ed Cunicelli.
Yeah. Who?
I don't know. Ed Cunicelli.
I like that name.
Could be, it says he's from Philly, USA, but it might be Italian.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, message. Love.
Pass the G&T, please.
Love podcast. I wanted to say thank you for all you do. Good laughs, informative, entertaining, and a good reminder of the worldwide community we all share in.
Invaluable for anyone starting out, says Jay Clapton. My favourite podcast, and also a great community and network through the Fujicast Facebook group. Are you a member yet? For anyone starting out in photography or thinking of going professional, this is an invaluable listener resource. Neil and Kev impart their vast knowledge of the industry for others to learn from with real honesty and openness. If you listen to every episode, you'll learn loads, confirm things you thought you knew but you were afraid to ask, and laugh along the way. I couldn't personally be without it. Well, that was a lovely thing to say. Thank you, Jay Clapton.
This one's from Jason Renault, Renaux, French sounding name this time. Thomas Heaton episode he's talking about. He says, I was going to drop a line or two about the episode, but you did a great job at it, so I'll just say a big thank you to all. Keep photography real.
Can I just say, thank you very much for all these. If you can, one of the most important things for us is to share. Sharing is caring. I don't know how we're going to do this, but I thought it might be a fun idea to, if you share somewhere, let us know where you're sharing, and we'll give them a mention as well, obviously. And so the shares are really important. So share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, and for all those people that sent in those lovely reviews, I want you to remember,
you're our favourite listener, and we mean it.
Honestly. Right, your question.
Okay, this is from James Souls, friend of the show.
Oh, he's
James
friend of the show, James Souls.
Hi, gents. I'm trying to remember the line or where to find a copy of the text you guys spoke about ages ago in relation to wedding contracts. On one of the early episodes, I think Kevin mentioned a line that was recommended to him. It said something about the client not being able to take you to court based on their dislike of your photos alone in relation to artistic style. Right. Don't worry, I'm not being sued. I'm just trying to go digital with a contract and get an e-signature system set up, so a good time to make changes. On that note, how do you have your clients sign the contract? Is it digital or by post? If digital, what do you use?
I'm just about to change, actually. I'm going to go digital with it.
Are you?
Is it Echo Sign?
EchoSign is the Adobe one, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to use.
I just send them a PDF, and then but I'd say to them, you can digitally sign it and or photograph it with your phone and send it back to me.
Is that as safe?
Safe?
Yeah. I mean, is that admissible in?
Yeah, it's like now it's fine. Even
Is
emails,
it? Okay,
all that kind of stuff. I just can't be bothered paying more money to other people again. Anyway, so that's what I do, and that's what Neil does. So Neil is going to EchoSign. I'm staying with PDFs. And in answer to your question, it was Joe Boosink, wasn't it? We were at that trade show with him.
Oh yes,
and he came out with that thing.
Yes.
The exact wording you'd have to get that verified by your own independent kind of lawyer or whatever. But essentially, it says something along the lines of, you can't reject these images based on not liking them because it's an artistic. You've looked at my website, you know what I shoot like, and you can't do that. So I'm reluctant to share the actual contract just because I've had mine signed up, you've had yours signed up, and you should always have yours signed up by a regular lawyer. But it's essentially that. And perhaps if you search for Joe Boosink contract on the internet, you might find it.
Or drop him a line. He's a lovely chap.
Indeed, drop him a line. Thanks, James.
A good few thousand people now contacting him.
Yeah.
Ivan Creeth, based in the States or Canada. Oh no, he does talk about the pond. And I'm thinking it is not the pond at the murky one at Silchester Church where I photographed, so it must be America. Dear Kev, dear Neil, long-time listener, first email, welcome. I was wondering how Kevin's Fujifilm recipes have changed with the addition of the colour chrome effects and the newer film simulations. Oh, good question. Thank you again. Love the show. Short and sweet. Looking forward to meeting you when my next trip across the pond. Area code 918. I'll look that up. So thank you, Ivan. So how's that changed? Or are you likely to change?
Yes, I will. But to be totally honest with you, this is the question I've been asked the most since the X100V came out. The X Pro 3 came out. I just have not had time to update my recipes or anything like that.
But you will be.
I will.
Yeah.
I will for sure. I've nuked my studio, so I've got rid of everything. I just have a desk now and my NAS.
Oh, you're getting so minimalist, you are.
Very minimalistic, and I will be. But I'm making space for my YouTube space. So I'm going to have a proper YouTube space.
Is there a big announcement coming?
No, that's it. So I will get around to it. I promise.
Okay. 918 is Tulsa. 24 hours. Since we're all singing.
Why are you singing that?
Because that's his area code. I was trying to find out where he lived.
Oh, I see.
I'm just doing a follow-up there. That's called good investigative journalism.
It is indeed. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I have one from Nick Leach. It says here, Nick Leach from On Purpose in New South Wales.
All right.
That can't be.
This is the last question, by the way.
On Purpose.
On Purpose.
Type that in. See if that's a real place in New South Wales.
No, that would be his company name.
On Purpose.
On Purpose. Well, nobody lives in a place called On Purpose.
Well,
On Purpose Photography.
No, type in New South Wales. Get rid of photography.
New South Wales.
Hang on. You're going too quick. It's very confusing.
New South Wales is a very big place. We're going to look through every single name of every single town and village.
Yeah.
Don't call them villages.
Well, Nick, sorry.
I'm sure that's On Purpose as a company.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a podcast.
Maybe.
Anyway, Nick, just let us know, mate. we have no idea. He goes on to say, love the podcast and listen every Tuesday in Sydney, Australia, which of course makes sense.
Does it? No. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It does make sense.
Yes.
They are ahead of us, so I was thinking they'd listen
on Sunday.
On Sunday night. No. But of course, it's not out.
Exactly.
He'd be in a time-travelling machine.
Neil, this podcast has the best sound of any I listen to.
Oh, you're very kind.
Nice. He says, Kev, your words of wisdom are awesome, and I love how you cut through the bullshit.
I beg your pardon?
Okay, so the questions are, there's three. I fell in love with the Fuji, the original X100. I now have the XT3 and X100F. The questions are, 1, back button focus. When do you use this versus autofocus? I assume with back button focus, you do not get eye focus, but I guess it doesn't matter. I use back button focus
I know you do.
all the time.
Yep.
Well, 99% of the time. In continuous focus mode, the eye detection and all that kind of stuff will work.
You don't use continuous?
I do it for bridal,
for the recessional,
stuff,
but most of the time you don't, do you? No.
Yeah, so back button focus for me all of the time. You don't use it?
Nope. I know you've talked to me many times and tried to persuade me that is the way of the future.
No, it doesn't. What works for one person doesn't work for another.
A single-shot focus man, with the with my half-depressed shutter button.
Yeah. I also watch on YouTube Thomas Heaton and was so excited when he got an X-T3. I have to agree with him, though. I seem to have trouble using Fuji RAW files in Lightroom. I mostly shoot black and white with RAW backup, so if I want a colour version, I have to use the RAW, but I'm always disappointed with the colour in RAW. How do you guys manage your Fuji RAW files? Do you Capture One? Do you use Capture One?
I'm Lightroom.
I'm Lightroom also. I have dabbled with Capture One recently, but I haven't really got much further than that. Lightroom for me.
I did, one of it's because I'm just so sucked into the whole Adobe thing that I dare step outside it. I don't understand anything outside it. My little brain doesn't let me understand it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a workflow thing for sure. I do hear
that people say Capture One is much better for the colours.
I think it's, I'm seeing the people that are moving to Capture One generally, I think, are people who are doing small scale shoots, landscapes perhaps, portraits, etc. When you've got 400 images to edit, I still think that Lightroom is the way forward for me, at least, anyway. Question 3, Kevin, you said you will replace your X-T3 with X Pro 3s as you prefer them. I'm curious, with them being so similar, what do you love on the X Pro 3 versus the X-T3, assuming X-T3 gets a new film simulation? Thanks, team. Love your work. You should come to Sydney for a photo walk and live podcast. Yeah. Live podcast. I think he said that on purpose.
Oh.
Anyway, so the answer is X Pro 3. It's very much a stylistic choice. I prefer the X Pro 3s. I prefer right-eyed shooting. Yeah. I prefer the size. I prefer the weight. I prefer the dials. I prefer the ergonomics. I prefer the layout.
Yeah. You prefer it?
I prefer it. The inside is identical, all bar a couple of firmware tweaks. Yeah. So, yeah. X Pro 3 for me, X-T3 for you. Your mileage may vary.
Yes, it may do. Right, okay, photo disasters, and that's it. Just a little shorty today, really, because Kev's got lots to do, really. He's giving me that look of, I've got to be away, so it's going to be a shorty.
Take Albie to football.
Yeah, good old Albie. Hi, here's a mistake I actually did last year, and for the first time in a 30-year career, I actually went to the wrong venue. I turned up, so you're a wedding photographer, yes. This is from Andy Stonia. I turned up at the Winters Barns in Canterbury and was unloading from the boot of the car. Literally next to me, a young woman was getting her cameras ready. I assumed she was the videographer, so I started chatting and she said she was the photographer. Transpires that my wedding that day was at the Old Kent barn, not the Winters barn. Thankfully, like Kevin, I always allowed plenty of time, so all good in the end. Yeah, you'd be all right in that situation. Those people that fly in would be in real trouble.
I would be fine because I would be there about 3 hours early.
8 hours early. You're there before anybody actually gets there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you'd be absolutely fine.
But that is a nightmare, isn't it? Can you imagine that?
I've got to say, this isn't quite the same thing, but there's a barn called it's not a barn, it's a Notley Abbey. It has a barn attached to it. It's a beautiful place. But over the back, there's another barn, which is, I think, called the Tithe Barn, Notley or something. Guests always get it wrong.
Yeah, I've been to both.
And they arrive at the wrong venue.
You can walk, you go through that little copsey field. You can get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's the place in Gloucestershire. You've got, it's called the Tithe Barn.
Yeah.
Cripps Barn and Cripps Stone Barn.
Yes.
They've changed the names of them now, I think.
Don't you send them the wrong way, that's what I usually do.
Such a pleasant person.
Just a little bit of fun on a Saturday afternoon. If you've got a disaster story, please send it in to click at fujicast.co.uk. And thank you for the ones that you have been sending. We've got quite a few actually to get through. So my thanks to all those that come in. That's it for this week. Thank you to this week's guest, Luis Garvan. Now I know it's Louis, not Louis. If you've liked this or any of the week's shows, thank you. If you can, and of course feel it's relevant, we'd love you to leave a review. Some apps have it, some don't. In particular, Apple Podcast does, and it makes a real difference to know you're there, because we do read every single one. A podcast giant, by the way, popped by the other day to visit me, and I'll share his name another time. Joe Rogan. That we should be asking you to share, and he's absolutely right. You should be sharing, and we should be asking you, but both myself and Kev, we're far too British. And so we never have really. But if you can share, that certainly helps the show. Share on Twitter or Facebook, anything like that.
Please share the podcast. Please share the podcast.
Yeah.
That's my British accent.
Talking of Facebook, see in the Facebook group for any question you have about today's show. Send your questions, your thoughts, your disaster stories, anything of interest to click at fujicast.co.uk. Music is from Blue Wednesday. We're supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. And if you'd like to see our offerings to the photo community, then there's an easy way to do that. There's one address that you can go to on our website.
Learn about the kit Neil and Kevin use, get links to all their websites, and find out first about any new workshops coming up by going to www.fujicast.co.uk/the boys.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And now the bits that didn't make the show.
And he says, Dear Neil and Kevin, I've been a fan of the podcast for years.
Yes.
No, I need to start that again.
Okay.
Dear Neil and Kevin, I've been a fan of podcasts.
And remember, your questions really are the blood. They're the lifeblood, the blood life of Do It Again.
The Fujicast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.